Hey friends, welcome back to another Monday. Today I'm going to be processing a whole bunch of apples and potatoes, sweet potatoes, and I'm also going to be getting out in my garden and pulling the last of the things that are out there because we are expecting our first frost a good 2 weeks earlier than we normally do. My husband has talked for decades about his grandmother's old-fashioned pear preserves. They really sounded more like candied pears, the way that he talks about taking a fork and pulling one out of the jar and how it just looked like candy. So I found this old-fashioned pear preserves recipe and I'm trying it out, but of course I am using apples. So it'll be interesting to see how they hold up in comparison to the texture of pears. But here you can see that I have sliced them all up. They're cored and peeled. And then the recipe that I'm following calls for sugar and slices of lemon. And you actually leave the lemon slices in even when you can it. So this is going to sit for about 12 hours. And then this evening I will move on to the next step. Next, I want to core and slice and peel a bunch more apples for doing apple slices in the dehydrator, like apple chips. I'm going to sprinkle these a little bit with cinnamon this time and then lay them out in the dehydrator, and I will let these go for about 12 hours at 135 degrees. Now, every time that I show my dehydrator in a video, people ask for the link or what brand it is. It is actually, the brand was called Good For You, GOOD, the number 4, and then the letter U. And they are no longer in business. It's very interesting. I bought mine, goodness, probably over 15 years ago when a friend said that she had this kind and it was a really good alternative to the Excalibur, which was way out of my budget at the time. I don't use it a whole lot throughout each year, but it has been a workhorse. I've never had any problems with it, and it makes me sad that they no longer are in business. You may have noticed that I was putting all of the cores and peels and any scraps in a large bowl as I was processing the other apples. I do this because I then make apple scrap vinegar or apple cider vinegar basically with the scraps. I add 1 cup of sugar to this gallon jar that I have filled with apple scraps. That's cores, peels, and other little bits that weren't quite perfect enough to add to my recipes. And then I put a really generous splash or 10 of this raw apple cider vinegar that has the mother in it. You can see it just plop down into my jar, and that helps kind of give it a head start, I have found. Then I'll fill this with water and put some cheesecloth over it and let it sit for 2 weeks. This is what my pot looked like after sitting the rest of the day, and it just, the apples started producing their own juices. In fact, the juices were almost covering the apples and lemon slices at this time. So this was really exciting. From this point on, I turned the temperature on low, and I am notorious for forgetting to stir pots like this frequently, and then things scorch on the bottom. And it is so sad because if you let it scorch for too long, then your recipe ends up tasting like a campfire. Thankfully, that did not happen this time around. This is what it looked like after about an hour. And this was the final product. After 3 hours, it looked amazing. But it was kind of somewhere between applesauce and preserves. The apples definitely broke down more than I was hoping. I would love to make this recipe again. And next time, cut much thicker slices. Hopefully they would hold up a little bit better. But this is the finished product in some pint jars. It did make 6 pints, but I put 1 in the fridge for my kids to go ahead and try because we were all excited about this recipe. And it's so pretty in the jar because you can see in that one right back there, you can see the lemon slices. And the comments in the recipe said that a lot of people chose to leave the lemon slices in and it makes it really pretty, and that their family members eat it. When they spread it on a biscuit or toast, they include the lemon slices and they taste amazing. So this was a really great recipe to try, and it turned out delicious. Now let's check on those apple chips. They are looking great after about 10 hours, in the dehydrator, and I decided to go ahead and put them back in for another 2 or 3 hours at 135 degrees. It always makes me a little bit nervous when I think they're done, but I'm not positive all of the moisture is out because I don't want them to go bad. Next up, it was time to process some potatoes from the garden. Now, I do not give canning advice on my channel, so don't come at me, but I can point you in the direction of people who have decades and generations of experience, and one of those people is my friend Ruth Ann. I will link the video to her dry canning potatoes. She has a YouTube channel, and this is my first time dry canning potatoes. I'm pretty excited. It's really, really simple. So I'll put the link in the description, but I am not giving any instructions to you. You will have to go be brave and rebellious on your own. But these turned out really, really great. I'm excited to use them for the first time. Next, I decided to do the same thing, but with sweet potatoes. I plan to use these for the first time when we make sweet potato casserole around Thanksgiving. Each time I process a batch in my pressure canner, it holds 7 quarts. I think I will do one more round of sweet potatoes after this one, so that would be a total of 14 quarts. But after that, I'm just going to save what's left. In the pantry, I will save the biggest ones so that we can do baked sweet potatoes through the winter, roasted. The smaller ones will be easier to peel and just cut up into big chunks for canning, but sweet potatoes can last so long in the pantry, even in our climate here in South Carolina. So I plan on just leaving the rest in my pantry once they have cured. I would say the 3 main ways that we use sweet potatoes in our house are roasted sweet potatoes, baked sweet potatoes, and sweet potato casserole, but typically just around Thanksgiving. If you have other sweet potato recipes, will you let me know in the comments? There were a few years ago when I had my first ever really big sweet potato harvest that I looked up on the Half Baked Harvest website, which has an ingredient search. So if you have, let's say, a ton of radishes, I don't know, I'm thinking of something obscure. You can actually put in radishes in the search bar under her recipes, and it will show you all of her recipes that include radishes. So I did that with sweet potatoes one year and came up with quite a few really unique ones. One of our favorites was sweet potato gnocchi with, I think it was like an herb butter sauce. It was really good and unique. It was my first time making gnocchi, and I'm glad that I'm just thinking about that again because I should try that recipe again. All that to say, if you have other websites besides Half Baked Harvest or maybe Budget Bites where you can search recipes according to the ingredients that you have, let me know in the comment section because I love taking simple ingredients that I already have or that I'm growing in the garden and trying out new recipes that are still fairly simple but maybe change up our regular menu repertoire. I had a little bit of sweet potatoes left in my bowl, so I decided to chop those up, put a little potato slayer seasoning on them, and roast them for dinner that night. I am sad to say that the daughter I put in charge of keeping an eye on them in the oven, including a timer and a reminder, forgot, so they burnt to a crisp and went to the chickens. Here I am getting the rest of the serrano peppers off of my plants in the garden, along with a few last bell peppers and a few other random ones that I can't even remember the name of. Since we have an early first frost coming, I decided to go ahead and get these sweet potatoes out of the ground. They probably would have been okay with a light frost. I think the low is only 32, but I wanted to go ahead and pull them and get them inside because if they cure properly, they'll last all winter long. Here's my sweet potato crop from one last row. It's so funny. Some plants produced nothing but a couple of these, and some produced 6 of these from one slip. I don't know if we had bugs or moles or voles, but I lost several really big sweet potatoes. This was just mush on the end. Really, really gross. Now the rest of this is huge and healthy, so I don't know. I may go in and chop it off in half and see if the other half of that big old sweet potato is still useful. But you can see that one over there. I'm not even going to zoom in because I've got my gloves on. I love these gloves. But though that one over there is mushy and has holes all in it. So I'm very happy with this for one row of sweet potatoes. And these should last us a good while through the next couple of months. We ended our long, productive day with our first fire of the season. Thanks for watching.